There are fewer and fewer options available at quarterback. So, what are the Miami Hurricanes going to do?
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I am Alex Dono, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC, and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. On this loaded episode of Locked On Canes, we'll talk about the Xavier Lucas situation, the defensive back from Wisconsin who wants to get out of Wisconsin, but they don't want to let him enter the transfer portal. What steps Lucas is taking, and we talk about this because he's a South Floridian from American heritage, and if he does hit the portal, he could be an option for the Hurricanes. What he's doing to try and get out of Wisconsin. He doesn't want to be there anymore. We'll talk about the defensive coordinator situation, what we know about the search and what we don't know about the DC search right now. And we'll talk about quarterback options and other transfer portal notes. Folks, I'll tell you the biggest surprise of the weekend and the early week for me is, as you may have figured out, because we didn't have a Monday episode and our Tuesday episode is coming out a lot later than it usually does. I just got back from a short family vacation. We took a few days out at Disney World. And usually, as in almost always, when I take a trip, Miami usually lands players left and right. It's a blessing and a curse, right? Because, I love to do episodes right after Miami lands transfers and hires new coaches. So I thought, Saturday afternoon through Tuesday afternoon, we're out in Disney World. I figured Miami's going to land a new defensive coordinator. Miami's going to land 3 or 4 more transfers. We were around, for most of the day Saturday when Miami did land multiple players on Saturday, which was awesome. But the fact that Miami has not landed a single player or hired a new DC for the past 2.5 days, it's truly shocking. Maybe this program is cooked. I kid. In terms of the quarterback situation, it's been something rightfully so. It's been a concern for Miami fans, heading into the meaty part of this offseason, because we know, unfortunately, Cam Ward, brilliant. He's out of eligibility. He's probably about to be the top overall draft pick. There's a lot of smoke that the Tennessee Titans, who have that first overall pick, are likely going to use it on Cam Ward. Congratulations to him. But we have now a situation with Ward off to the NFL. Miami has just 3 scholarship quarterbacks. Emory Williams heading into his 3rd year, and Emory played the second half of the Pop-Tart Bowl, did not inspire any confidence in Miami fans, was a poor showing from him. I know he's practiced well, but we have concerns about that situation. So he's heading into his 3rd year. You've got Judd Anderson heading into his 2nd year, doesn't have any college experience yet, and you've got Luke Nickel coming in as a true freshman. And, listen, depending on what happens in Miami's quarterback room, Luke Nickel, who just led Milton High School to 2 consecutive state championships, was named Mr. Georgia football, really has had a brilliant past couple of years playing high school ball. He might get an earnest opportunity to be Miami's starting quarterback year 1. We know, though, anytime you start a true freshman at quarterback, no matter how talented they may be, and I've got confidence in Luke Nickel as an option for the future, but we would all have to kind of take a step back and say, hey, if your starting quarterback is a true freshman, you have to temper expectations a little bit and understand it might be more of a bridge season. He might have to take some lumps. I mean, have there been freshmen over the years that just go out there and ball their first year in college? Those are the exceptions to the rule. So I still, at the end of the day, I think Miami would like to add an experienced, potential, strong, starting caliber quarterback. Now, either way, I think Miami's got to add a quarterback because you only have 3 scholarship QBs, Williams, Anderson, and Nickel. So the room is thin to begin with. And if you look at players Miami either maybe could have gone after or were rumored to go after, most of these names are popping off the board to the point where the only options for Miami are guys who maybe aren't even options because they're not in the transfer portal right now. So the latest on the quarterback situation, a name that, we had talked about on Locked On Canes for the past couple of weeks, but, it doesn't seem like Miami really made a move for this quarterback, despite the fact that we hypothesized that they might. I don't think they ever invited him for a visit, so maybe this is someone Miami never went after. Mark Gronowski, former FCS standout of South Dakota State. He's got a year of eligibility left. We kind of wondered, maybe is Miami going to take a look there? Doesn't seem like Miami took a look. He made a visit to Iowa, and he is committed to the Hawkeyes. So Mark Gronowski, now some might say, you know what, I'm fine with that because he doesn't have any FBS experience, no Power 4 experience. Maybe we didn't want to, bring in another guy who may not, be any better than Reese Poffenbarger was, who, came in off of an awesome FCS career. But Miami is not getting Mark Gronowski. He's committed to Iowa. There were rumors late last week, and folks, man, some of these rumors get completely out of control, where some dude on a message board is like, this guy's going to be our quarterback in 48 hours, and people run with it. There were rumors late last week that USC quarterback Jaden Mayava might become an option for Miami. But it appears Mayava, who is likely to be their starter next year, is staying with the Trojans. He's staying in Southern California because his deadline to enter the transfer portal has long passed. And we talked about it a little bit on the show last week. Late last week, the USC insiders, they inquired about it, right? Because there was so much Miami smoke. But they, by the end of the week, were saying, no, we believe Mayava is staying with USC. That appears to be the case. So that's another one you can cross off the list. And then get a third you can cross off the list. Now, this one, I hypothesized about this a little bit last week because I watched this player towards the end of the year and in the college football playoff. I had wondered, is there any way Sam Leavitt from Arizona State might consider entering the transfer portal? Because, Leavitt, again, he tremendous pocket presence, great improviser, really talented quarterback who, really elevated Arizona State this past season. He's sticking with the Sun Devils. That was confirmed on Tuesday. Sam Leavitt is staying at Arizona State. And honestly, I respect his move. And it was mentioned, On 3 Sports wrote an article about Leavitt that he's going to be making good NIL money at Arizona State. He just signed a new deal there, but was offered a lot more money from other places. I don't know which other places. Like, I'm not trying to say Miami was involved. I don't know. But there were allegedly other schools that were offering him more money to enter the transfer portal. He decided to stick with less, to stay at Arizona State because he knows he's in a situation there that's good for him. And he and Kenny Dillingham, the head coach there, have a really good relationship. So you can cross Sam Leavitt off the board as well. So a lot of the options now that are still getting bantered about from Miami fans and some Miami reporters in terms of who the next quarterback could be. Again, these are big names who are not in the transfer portal, may not enter the portal, and may end up deciding to go pro. And the names that you're going to keep hearing, and I wonder if anything could happen here, Carson Beck from Georgia and Quinn Ewers of Texas. Now with Beck, you're going to have a couple reactions to that. Number one, you're going to say, well, didn't he already declare for the National Football League? He did, but he still has a deadline to potentially back out from that, and that deadline is January 15th. So we're talking about a week from now, or a little more than a week from now. I'm here on January 7th. So within 8 days, Carson Beck has to make his final decision. There is obviously, well, maybe not obvious to some of you, but there is a Miami tie-in for him because he's dating Hannah Cavender, one of the Cavender twins who plays basketball at the University of Miami. And, it seems like the situation may not be, so favorable for him at Georgia if he decides to stay there. Now, the other thing with Carson Beck is, and this is one of the things that could keep him out of his NFL commitment, is he's recovering from an elbow injury. He just had Tommy John surgery for the UCL. So that, on the one hand, he's probably not getting great NFL feedback because of that, because he can't go through all the full battery of workouts that help impress scouts and everything. But then at the same time, if you're a college program that may bring him in, you also have the concerns of, is he going to be full go when spring football starts? Probably not, right? And obviously Carson Beck is very experienced. Maybe he could get away with not being full go as long as he's throwing a little bit and, doing some various workouts and building chemistry with his receivers. Maybe you can get away with some of that stuff. But again, I can't say for sure that Beck is even going to enter the transfer portal. He may decide to go pro. He may stick with Georgia. So you're talking about a player who's not even currently available right now. And of course, the same can be said for Quinn Ewers, who still has an opportunity to win a championship in the college football playoff because the Texas Longhorns are still alive. Now, we all know that with Ewers, he could decide to go pro. Some of the feedback you hear from NFL people is that Ewers could benefit, the way Cam Ward did, benefit from another year in college to raise his draft stock even higher. Because if he does decide to play 1 year of college ball, I don't think it's going to be with the Longhorns because, Texas is not going to have Arch Manning sit on the bench for 3 years. He's going to be entering his third year next year. So I think with Ewers, obviously a lot of things have to happen. He's got to decide not to go pro. And if he does decide to play 1 more year of college, he's got to decide Miami is the spot for him to do that, which is not a guarantee. Now, I do feel like Miami would be competitive from an NIL point of view there because it does sound like Miami was very competitive for John Mateer, who ultimately decided to go to Oklahoma. Of course, he grew up a Sooners fan, and his head coach and his quarterbacks coach, or his offensive coordinator, I should say, and his quarterbacks coach left Washington State for there. So that was a situation that made sense for him. But Ewers is another one to watch. But again, folks, it's like, I will admit, I have this feeling that Miami wants to cook up something big at the quarterback spot. That's what my gut tells me. But then at the same time, it's like, you're talking about options. Can you get lightning to strike in the bottle for the second straight year? Because, it was tremendous that Miami was able to land Cam Ward against the odds because he had to opt against going to the NFL to come to the U. Will the same thing happen again this year? And I'm not saying that either of these guys are as good as Cam Ward. Like, I'm not saying it. Carson Beck, we have our concerns about him. Quinn Ewers, like, neither of these guys are better than Ward, but in terms of landing another big name, I feel like Miami wants to make a splash there, and maybe there's some quiet confidence that they can, but it does seem like an uphill climb. So you guys let me know in the comments below, what do you think is going to happen with the Hurricanes quarterback situation? Do you think Emory Williams is going to bounce back from a tough Pop-Tarts Bowl, grab that job, get the bull by the horns? Maybe you're a Judd Anderson believer. I really liked Judd coming out of high school. He's big arms, 6'7". Or do you think Luke Nickel can take that job year one as a true freshman? Or do you think Miami is cooking up something really big, like maybe Carson Beck behind the scenes, Quinn Ewers behind the scenes? Let us know in the comments below. We don't have a defensive coordinator yet either. And maybe the lack of a quarterback and the defensive coordinator might have, cost Miami a couple of transfer portal commitments over the weekend. You guys want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. I'm only getting started on the Game Time app. Guys, I'm getting the best deals on tickets. This is the only ticket app that I use. It's Game Time. If you want to attend any of these final 4 games for the college football playoff, you're going to find incredible deals on the Game Time app. Guys, I found great deals on Pop-Tarts Bowl tickets. I found great deals to some big concerts coming up in the spring. I'm going to take my family to. And if you want to experience those final CFP games, guys, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Guys, I've used Game Time a lot over the past couple of months. The on-time ticket delivery and lowest price guarantees gave me complete peace of mind. I love the panoramic view. I can't speak today. I'm a little rusty after a couple of days off. Getting a panoramic view from my seat in the app before I buy is an absolute game changer. And I love the all-in pricing feature that shows you the total upfront with no hidden fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code Locked On College, and they'll give you $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC. I co-host that show with Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. We take you all around the ACC. A lot of football talk. We'll start doing more basketball as well this time of year. Like this show, it's available free wherever you get your podcasts, and it's available free on YouTube. So, we had some optimism heading into the weekend. The Branch brothers came down to Miami for a visit. Zachariah Branch, the highly rated receiver, his brother Zion Branch, capable safety. Ultimately, for some reason, Florida fans are cooking me on this as if he chose their school or something. But ultimately, the Branch brothers chose Georgia, not Miami. For some reason, my episode about the Branch brothers was getting retweeted left and right from Gators fans. It's like, that's a weird flex. You're going to celebrate Miami not getting a couple players that go to a more literal rival of yours who you play every single season. But Miami's not getting the Branch brothers. Gabby Urrutia from 24/7 Inside the U did mention that, not having a quarterback right now, might have affected, the Zachariah Branch part of the decision. As far as Zion Branch, the safety, maybe not having a defensive coordinator might have affected that. I think that there was some questionable reporting about Miami's DC search, because something came out a couple of nights ago claiming that Tim Banks of Tennessee had turned Miami down for their defensive coordinator job. My understanding is that, Miami never actually offered Banks and never actually interviewed him. He was listed by the media as a possible candidate, but yeah, I don't think you can turn down something that you weren't actually offered. Now, I say that I'm not trying to flex this as a Miami guy, because I like Banks. I think he would have been a really good candidate for this DC job. It seems like I had also a guy that I had linked to the DC job, Tyler Santucci from Georgia Tech. I'm not sure if it's going to end up being him either. I kind of wonder about Pat Fitzgerald, former head coach of Northwestern, because I do, we've brought this up a couple times since Lance Guidry was fired, that I think Mario Cristobal would like to have like a head coach of the defense, someone with a lot of experience, someone who's been a head coach before. Fitzgerald was the head coach of Northwestern for many years. Like, he was ultimately, made the scapegoat for a hazing situation there. He's actually suing Northwestern for wrongful termination, but someone with a ton of experience. Like, I wonder if Pat Fitzgerald could really be a name to watch. Something that really cannot be emphasized enough is Mario Cristobal is keeping this search very quiet. And I think that's one of the reasons why you've seen some reporting on people allegedly, turning it down, who maybe weren't offered the job, or other reports about possible candidates who don't end up being candidates. Mario Cristobal, I think he very much subscribes to the motto that loose lips sink ships. And he likes to keep these, whoever's interviewing, very close to the vest. Now, one thing that was brought up on Tuesday by Gary Furman at Kane Sport on the DC search is, he says, as of Tuesday, the only buzz that we're hearing today is Anthony Campanalli from the Packers, but no idea if that's real yet. He says, we are on the case. Now, Campanalli, he's someone, we brought up his name before as well here on Locked On Canes. He used to be temporarily, at least, he was local, because he was the linebackers coach of the Miami Dolphins from 2020 to 2023, spent 4 seasons with the Dolphins. And I believe Campanalli 2 years ago, before Lance Guidry was given the defensive coordinator, or a little over a year ago, I guess that was, when Guidry was hired, Campanalli interviewed for the DC job the previous time that it was vacant with the Hurricanes. So, he's someone that Cristobal is familiar with. Now, Campanalli is currently the linebackers coach of the Green Bay Packers and is pretty well regarded there. Now, I guess the only reservation you would have, like if this is a bona fide, legitimate candidate for the DC job, the only reservation you would have is doesn't have defensive play calling experience. Now, I like the experience of him having held important jobs in the NFL as linebackers coaches from a couple of NFL franchises, but I guess the lack of play calling experience would be a concern. He has worked in college before, so it's not like he's unfamiliar with recruiting and everything that comes with the college stuff. So I mentioned he's currently with the Green Bay Packers. Was with the Miami Dolphins for the previous 4 seasons. Prior to that, he was the linebackers coach at Michigan. Before that, co-defensive coordinator and defensive backs coach at Boston College. I don't believe he had play calling duties there, though, despite the co-defensive coordinator tag. If I'm wrong, feel free to correct me on that, but I don't think he was calling plays. Was a defensive backs coach. Was actually a wide receivers coach and tight ends coach at Rutgers. Before that, he was a defensive assistant at Rutgers. And then prior to that, he was offensive coordinator at Don Bosco Prep in New Jersey. So I guess that's where the play calling experience would be, but he hasn't done it at the college level, did it at the high school level only. But Campanalli, was aware of his time with the Miami Dolphins, another team that I cover, and we could certainly do worse. So you have to wonder. And one of the other, and again, there's so much about this DC search that we don't know. I think maybe part of Mario's criteria here is he would prefer, I don't think it's a must, but I think he would prefer the next defensive coordinator to be willing to work with and keep around Jason Taylor, defensive line coach. Of course, we all know Jason Taylor's resume and how well he recruits, being the Pro Football Hall of Famer and all that. And of course, JT is very well liked, rightfully so, down here. And maybe Derek Nicholson is another one who's well liked on the staff. So again, maybe a suspicion that I have is that perhaps Cristobal would like the next defensive coordinator to be willing to work with some of the members who are currently on the staff. So all I know is get it right. Don't hire somebody just for the sake of hiring somebody. But if you can get it right quickly, that would be a preferred outcome, because the sooner Miami can get a defensive coordinator in, the better. Okay. All right. Let's talk about, potential transfer situation in the defensive backfield. And again, like if this player gets into the transfer portal, he may or may not become a Miami Hurricane, but I don't think that's the lead here. The lead story here is, why is the team he's trying to exit not allowing him to do so? You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. We're only getting started with FanDuel. Folks, from big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. Visit the website, FanDuel.com, and join today. Get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. I'm going to be all over this for the playoffs. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, a couple of surprising outgoing transfer portal situations. I did not have this on my bingo card. So the Georgia Bulldog, it seems like Georgia has a gravitational pull. Anybody who enters the transfer portal, whether you want to go to Georgia or not, they suck you in, or whether they want you or not, they suck you in. Jaden Harris, I was very surprised. Jaden, former Miami safety who had, he had a tough year. We'll say that. Jaden Harris had a tough year at Miami. The Georgia Bulldogs have added him. Georgia, they added the Texas A&M receiver whose name escapes me, really prominent. They added, both Branch brothers. They add Jaden Harris, which was a little bit of a head scratcher, but good luck to him. Really nice young man. I hope maybe he'll find the success at UGA that he could not find here. And Wisconsin added former Miami defensive back Deani Hill, who was another one who had kind of a rough year here in Coral Gables, but Wisconsin Badgers have added him. You know, Tyler Van Dyke last year, who's back in the transfer portal, Deani Hill this year. Now, Wisconsin, the Badgers are also at the center of a transfer portal controversy. So we've been covering this one for a couple of weeks, right? Xavier Lucas, former American Heritage standout defensive back, had a really good true freshman season this year with the Wisconsin Badgers. But before Christmas, 5 or 6 days before Christmas, he announced he was entering the transfer portal and he was leaving Wisconsin. Problem was, Wisconsin refused to file his paperwork, which is a real head scratcher because my understanding of the NCAA bylaws, and this has been shared, multiple times within the last couple of weeks, is no matter what they feel the circumstances are, no school, Wisconsin included, can block a player from entering the transfer portal after they've requested to do so. That even if they feel like there are extenuating circumstances, that they cannot just tell Lucas, hey, sorry, buddy, you want to go to the portal, we're not going to let you in. And the talk from Wisconsin folks, there's been a lot of chatter that, right before he announced he was entering the portal, he just inked a new NIL deal with the Wisconsin collective. That, hey, how can you agree to a new deal, take the money, and then announce you're leaving for somewhere else? We need to hold you accountable for this. That's, unfortunately for them, that's not a valid reason to keep him from entering the portal. If they want to make sure the collective recovers that money, you can, you could sue him for it if you have to, but you can't block him from entering the transfer portal. That's not a legal response to a situation like that. There were a lot of Wisconsin fans who speculated. Again, this was only speculation because this has not been proven in any way, shape, or form. They speculated maybe somebody else was tampering with Lucas. That's why he wanted to enter the portal. But that's also, even if that was going on, that's not a valid reason to keep him out of the transfer portal. Now, it has been speculated by many because it makes sense given where he's from, where he played his high school ball, American Heritage in South Florida. Miami did recruit Xavier Lucas pretty heavily before he went to Wisconsin. Seems like Miami came in second place for him before he went to Wisconsin. So a lot of folks have speculated that if and when Lucas is able to hit the portal, that Miami could be a logical landing spot for him. And despite the fact that Miami has already landed a number of defensive backs in the portal, the Hurricanes still need more additions there. And Lucas seems to be a player who could help Miami's defensive backfield a lot. So, with Wisconsin just refusing to file his paperwork, I guess the question people are asking is, well, did they win? Right? Because the deadline for Lucas to enter the portal has long passed, a couple weeks past. Is he stuck there in Madison? So here was an ex post by sports attorney, does a lot of NIL work, Darren Heitner. In fact, I'm going to invite Darren back on the show. We had Darren on, it was more than a year ago, probably a year and a half ago or so. So we have had Darren Heitner on Locked on Canes before, but Darren Heitner announced on Tuesday morning, he says, hey, this morning, Xavier Lucas retained Heitner Legal, his firm. I have contacted the NCAA demanding that it enforce its rules, which require Mr. Lucas to be entered into the transfer database. If Wisconsin doesn't budge, then we will escalate this matter to litigation. So I wonder if Heitner turning up the heat, and God bless Xavier Lucas, because do whatever you can. Like you don't just sit back and not allow them to enter you into the portal. Like, get legal counsel, do whatever you can to force their hand. And I think the feeling now is that if Wisconsin doesn't compromise now that Lucas is lawyering up, if they don't budge and put him into the portal, that this could escalate. This could get ugly. So that's the latest. And I got to tell you, man, Miami fans ask me every single day, what's going on with Xavier Lucas? Is he in the portal? Is he not in the portal? He's still not in the portal, but he has hired a sports business attorney, Darren Heitner. He's done a lot of work in the NIL space. And I guess now in the transfer portal space, the two of those things get very much meshed together these days to try and get Wisconsin to, as they are obligated to do, put his name into the transfer portal. So we'll see where this goes. And listen, even if he doesn't end up at Miami, I want what's best. And I'm sincere and say, I know the Wisconsin fans are like, Dono, you're tampering. You're just trying to get him to the U. Listen, would I like to have him at Miami? Absolutely. But South Florida player, guy we covered coming out of high school, I want what's best for him. If he ultimately decides to take his talent somewhere else, fine. God bless him. So be it. But it's not fair and it's not legal for Wisconsin to hold him hostage. No matter what they think about the NIL deal he allegedly just signed, I mean, there are other ways to recover that money. Keeping him from entering the transfer portal is not a viable option for doing that. We appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm happy to be back. I feel a little rusty after a couple of days off. It might have been all those drinks around the world at Epcot. That might be why I'm feeling a little bit rusty. Make sure you smash that like button. Subscribe to Locked On Canes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your pods. Make sure you subscribe. And we will talk to you again next time. We're going to have the Truth Teller on tomorrow. We're going to do Truth Teller Tuesday on a Wednesday. And I think Bruce Warner, the Truth Teller, is going to have a big announcement to make. If he changes his mind about making this announcement, only time will tell. But I think the Truth Teller is going to have a big announcement for listeners and viewers of this show. So you want to tune in for that on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.